Welcome back to the channel, lads and ladies, and welcome to a brief look at some PBJ gameplay. This is my very favorite attacker in the game. It's one of the few attackers that I've made a custom camouflage for, the other ones being the IL-2M and the premium one, that is, and the what Grizzly with the 75mm cannon in the nose. Do you see a running theme here? Those are all fantastically fun attackers. This one, once again, one of the few regular tech tree vehicles I've made a custom camo for, and my love for this aircraft is apparent in the way I fly it in this video. I played about 3 or 4 matches in this thing today, and I had 1 or 2 dud matches where you just get jumped by some Menenga and your tail flies off or your wing snaps off after a few hits. It is what it is. Everything in War Thunder is made out of tissue paper these days. And we just ended up having a great match this time. The American fighters were keeping the bogeys off my tail, and I was able to make that 75mm cannon and the nose-mounted 50 cals in abundance sing that beautiful song of freedom. This was one of the few matches where we actually won on tickets, so my ground strike was decisive. You're right, Adam. It's usually not effective, but when it is, it is. I'm doing my part, and even more than that, I'm having a blast, which is, for me, the most important thing in War Thunder. I had a lovely little chat with some B-25 pilots today in a match just randomly, so I hope one of you guys decided to come stop by the channel. If so, welcome. Thanks for sticking around for the 2 days or so it took for this video to come out. And here's that PBJ I was telling you about. I am a huge fan of this aircraft. It doesn't really excel anywhere except in terms of sustained firepower. There are few aircraft in the game that can take down as many ground targets or linger longer. Plenty of fuel, defensive guns, so if you're low on energy, there's still something you can do, even if your survivability is far below what you would want it to be. The B-25 or PBJ can still pull out a survival to a little bit more fire than other aircraft of its type occasionally. It's not something you want to rely on in the game of War Thunder, though. Instead, using your firepower to your best advantage. Did you like that shot? Because I definitely liked that shot. Getting a good feel for the guns and having American 50 cals mounted all over the front of this thing definitely doesn't hurt. And maybe even one day we'll be able to use that naval search radar in the wing to find things like submarines and poke holes in their boats with our tank cannon. Wouldn't that be fun? But until that day comes, the PBJ is still just an absolute joy to fly. You don't really want to expect much out of it in most matches, but every now and then you'll either face off against the Japanese and laugh at them as they can't catch up to you at low altitude, and you get to gun them down with your defensive guns. That's always fun, to shoot zeros out of the sky as they flock toward you and expect you to just roll over and die for them. And other days you'll get a match like this where the enemy team more or less leaves you alone because they're caught up fighting for their life against the very capable American Speedy Boy fighters, and you have all the time in the world to just shut down the match early with some very competent ground strike. Don't mind if I do. I said competent. it takes a little getting used to. And I do have a get out of get good card today, because the War Thunder servers have been at a steady 1 to 2% packet loss, because Gaijin has other things in mind than client stability. Until World War Mode crashed. The entire game mode just straight up crashed. It's been delayed for a second time now, and I'm sure that'll be old news by the time this video comes out, but it just goes to show that you can get caught with your pants down, as it were, if you neglect the back-end code. The server client stability has not been improved often enough in War Thunder, and we've been seeing things like ghost shells being dealt with and then coming back in this last major update. Things like ghost vehicles, where vehicle rendering gets a little bit swifty, and even in this match you can see a few pillboxes that just stopped detecting hits even though they weren't destroyed. But that was a little bit of what's going on my end, and now it's about time to get into the replays. So I've been having a blast. Let's see what you all have been up to lately, and I have actually recorded a number of replays recently. So here's one. AmFam's very own Jane J. Sargent in the Doom Barn. Plenty of room for teabags and reason to teabag this Centurion tank with a, what would you even call this? A death box on top, housing one of War Thunder's largest cannons, and I think it's still the largest cannon mounted on a tank in-game. And it only fires Hesh. Around that, like every single high explosive damage type in the game, except some rockets, and probably bullpups and Nords also are in the exception of this category. But it has been nerfed again and again and again. But the problem with the Hesh on the Doom Barn is it's so hefty. There's only so much nerfing you can do before it gets ridiculous, because this is the epitome of a derp gun. Ironically, if this fired regular high explosive, it might even do more damage in some situations, because again, Hesh has been nerfed, adjusted, I tell you, time and time again, to reduce its effectiveness. I remember the days, and those were the days, by the way, when flocks of IS-6 would shut down the entire BR spread from, let's see, it was a 7-0 at the time, so from 6-0 to 8-0 was a no-fun zone because of the IS-6 spam. Even 8-0 matches would get shut down by that thing because it had an invisible extra 100mm plate behind the weak spot in its turret. A little whoopsie ski brought to you by Stalin's boys, and ensuring the dominance of that already very effective heavy tank that finds itself doing just fine at 7-3 today. And the only thing that could take it down was Hesh, which was behaving what I would call fairly reasonably. If you hit a solid sheet of armor, you would cause a shockwave in that armor, and it would do horrible, terrible things to the internals of an enemy tank. And yet, if there was any kind of spaced armor or some such, that would reduce its effect significantly. And instead, Gaijin have just reduced its effect significantly time and time again, to the point that Hesh is sort of a skill machine that has dice attached to it, much like every other kind of high explosive round performs in the game. It's a little bit of a toss of the dice, and its post-penetration damage is laughably reduced when compared with other rounds. And yet, there you can see the post-pen damage is not what you would expect for a hit like that, splashing the front plate of a Panther II and sending shrapnel throughout the entire crew compartment, and yet crew still survives inside. That's not the Panther II, that's a Panther... what's it? There's a Schmaltrum to it. I can't remember if it's a J or a H or a D or a K or whatever. I don't care. It's gone! Deleted! But you can see the body of the driver actually absorbed about 80% of the shrapnel from that Hesh round, causing the turret crew to get a lot less damage, especially from that first shot, on a vehicle that really relies on its ability to one-shot enemies. That just won't do, I say. It just won't do. And also, you gotta realize, it's like a 183mm cannon on this thing. I think it's something ridiculous, and the blast from that Hesh round should also, if not dislodge the turret, but at least damage the turret ring, damage the cannon barrel, and yet it seems like you have to get a direct hit with high explosive or Hesh for sub-modules to even notice things like that. Cannon barrels have been significantly increased in their damage resistance over a series of patches, and I don't really think that that was such a good idea. I get it that people get tired of having their cannon barrel knocked out, but at the same time, a high explosive round detonating reasonably close, especially if it's a high caliber one, should deal considerable damage to nearby unarmored modules. But works either way, because you still get shots like that, and it's not like Jane is doing poorly in this match either, is it? I like it when rounds are reliable, and I consider it a shame that something like the Doom Barn could not be relied on to one-shot enemies. It's one of the few derp tanks in the British line, and to see it have a chance for its stupendously powerful round to be negated by something as simple as the bodies of crew members or minor modules or things like side skirts or tracks, just don't seem right now, does it? And it kind of strikes a nerve to an experienced War Thunder player. We've seen other kinds of bullshittery, I tell you, and it gets to you over time. It eats away at your sanity, and before you know what's going on, you're back to Hello Kitty Island Adventure, where the world makes more sense. But this has been a delightful 7 and counting kills match, brought to you by the contributor formerly known as Tiny Chubman, and today named after some delightful anime girl, I have no doubt. Oh, in the end, a lot of things in War Thunder are looking good. The server stability is not looking good. It's looking especially bad lately. There's been a lot going on with optimization that has been for better and for worse, and overall I'd say that the coding in War Thunder needs some attention. We've got lots of vehicles, we've got lots of shiny things, and we've got problems and jankiness along with them, and the game is still playable. Except World War mode. It's fucking dead. There we go! There's that bullshit again. The driver's body absorbed the entire force of that Hesh round that would have, let's be honest here, obliterated that Panther from the inside out. But it's fine, you know, it's whatever. At least he got the cannon barrel this time. But it's not fine, is it? There comes a time where you've got to rise up and say, I'm mad as hell and I'm not gonna buy premiums anymore. Open up your windows, open up your doors and step outside. Scream it into the streets. This game is jank. This game is jankier than the USSR and I'm not gonna take it. Ah, never mind, I'm already over it. Let's fly some more aircraft. I've decided I'm gonna go for the Tigor decal with this month's Warbond shop. So I have 3 special tasks and 22 daily tasks to complete. That's the story for another time. G Squad Zone Torstein 32 now up in the 40mm Bofors Sweetie Boy Talk Lotkes Verbis Gergenwagen that you see before you today. If that's too much for you to say, as my perfect pronunciation may not have indicated to you, then maybe you could just call it the Mad Max Mobile. It looks like something from Fury Road, if not Mad Max 1, the filmed in Australia, somewhat less well-known edition of Mad Max. I think it was actually called, no, the Road Warrior was Mad Max 2, right? And then we've got Thunderdome, and then we've got Children of the Ooze, and then Mad Max Witness Me.exe, I think is what it was called. But a 40mm Bofors, I think it's a Bofors. She told me it was a Bofors. She told me it was her first anti-aircraft cannon, and I believed her. I believed her! Panzer, was that a Panzer IV early model with the stubby 75? You can tell from the angled sides of the frontal plate, and ooh, that's just that's gonna leave a mark as the Martyr lives up to its namesake, bearing witness to the destructive power of this anti-aircraft cannon, along with a Sonderkraftfahrzeug Puma and a Panzer II Rot in Hell, you tiny evil bastard. Finally got auto cannoned, but a 40mm Bofors with APHE rounds. Why do the Swedes get all the fun stuff? The Swedish tech tree, I'm telling you. Look at the tiny wheels underneath this truck. What is the deal? I swear, every uniquely Swedish vehicle looks like somebody gave a crayon to a 3-year-old and they just said, come up with ideas. And come up they did. Look at this thing. Look at the bespoke boilerplate armor on the front of this vehicle. It's like a weaponized Peugeot. But, what was I saying here? It's like the Swedish vehicles are half completely useless creative Euro trash, and the other half completely OP post-war Euro trash. And I use the term Eurotrash completely with love. I'm not sure how effective this platform would be for someone other than me as an anti-aircraft one, but I noticed that while he was firing, the gun stability was significantly better than what you see on things like the French 40mm in either of its iterations, the truck or the what's it called, the little light tank oscillating turret fella that they used for everything, AMX 13 version, something like that, DC 40 I think it's called, something like that. Anyway, very good anti-tank platform. Not the best anti-air, because when you fire, the whole vehicle wobbles, and it looks like this has some of that wobble as well. But it's a quick wobble. I was going to say a Schwifty wobble, but it's not really Schwifty now, is it? I'm not sure what Schwifty means, but no, it's a fairly predictable wobble. A stable wobble, if you will. A wibble wobble, a wobble wibble, a little wibble wobble, if you will. In case you hadn't noticed, I'm tired. I worked outside today. I did some yard work for a person that has an overgrown yard. I dealt with a lot of blackberries, and I just bought a pole saw. I live in an area where pull and pole are pronounced the same, so I have to be very distinct in how I pronounce that for you all, because you care. And also, it's a saw that's on a pole that you pull to use. So there's nothing in its function that helps to disambiguate what exactly I'm saying. Maybe it's only me, but that gets to me. I mean, what can I say about what Torstead is doing right now? He's just seeing people and then killing them. He's just got overwhelming forward-facing firepower. And the firing arcs on this cannon are not bad at all. I'll have to give this vehicle a shot next time I'm in low-tier Sweden, which might be pretty close to never, because I still haven't finished, fleshing out my 6-7 lineup, or my 7-7 lineup, and for those tiers seem like pretty fun levels for Sweden, but maybe this is where the fun's at. I hate to go through the stock grind for multiple vehicles. I guess it's not so bad at low tier, but still, it's the principle of the thing. I just hate it. Wouldn't it be great if the module grind for War Thunder was just cancelled one day, and they were like, we suddenly realized we made a huge and continuous error, and we've just decided to replace the module grind with absolutely nothing at all. Enjoy being competitive from the beginning. Also, all crews will be maxed out all the time, and if you spent any gold or silver lines maxing out a crew, that has now been refunded to you. Is it time to end our fantasy? Also, apologies for coughing into the mic. I have all the allergens in my lungs right now. I actually have seasonal allergies. I'm allergic to pretty much everything that exudes pollen or has sap. And yes, it's very stupid for me to have this hobby of working outside, doing landscaping gigs. And again, I just do that for my health, by the way. Quirties. I haven't heard from Quirties in a while. Is he okay? I hope he's doing well. Whenever I don't hear from one of you guys, I just kind of worry a little bit that maybe things aren't going super great for you, because I know that personally, when things are not so hot in my life, I tend to shut down and not talk. So you can tell I'm having a good time, and I'd really like all of you to have a good time as well. And if you're not having a good time, I'm a great person to talk to if you need to talk to somebody, just so you know. It'll always stay between the two of us, and I'm a friend. I'm a friend to everybody, and you can take that to the bank. And banking into QWERTY's right now, a puma. A friendly puma? Yes. And judging from the fact that he didn't get shot, that is a friendly puma. Anyway, I may or may not have completely lost my train. Right, so it's pretty dumb for me to be a landscaping gig kind of guy. I do it for my health. I really don't charge anything near what I should be charging for my time, but I'll accept a little bit of money from people for the opportunity of making their lawn look, or their yard look, a little bit better. But I just really have always enjoyed cutting brush. It's one of my favorite things to do. I'm a country boy. I grew up in the outdoors. I used to cut brush for fun. I used to cut and split and stack firewood with a chainsaw and an axe and a splitting maul, and you know, driving the truck and pulling actually driving the four-wheeler and pulling a trailer full of firewood, if you'll believe that. That is one of the funnest things you can do, just going out with the brothers, working hard, sweating, like feeling your muscles like just working. Oh, it feels so good. And I use the money to buy tanks in War Thunder and to buy tools so I can do more stuff. And I just got a pole saw. A pole saw. There I go, doing it again. This, from now on, it's known as a pole saw, as though it is a tool on a stick, known as a pole, like a power pole. But I'm gonna call it a pole saw, because that's the way I talk. Anyway, I had my doubts about this Fiskars brand pole saw because it has some Chinesium cheapness going on with certain plastic components, and some of the screws that are holding the clamps on, that clamp the pieces together, again, shitty brittle plastic. I don't like that, and the screws are too long, so they stick out further than they need to, and it's just something you can catch like your wrist on when you're working the shaft, as you do. And I'm the kind of guy that likes to use the whole tool, and I'm practiced 7 years of martial arts and did a lot of bow staff training just for fun, and you gotta be able to work the whole shaft, man. Like, shut up. If you can't slide your hands down the full length of the tool you're using, then in my opinion, that is a stupid tool, and I don't like that feature of the pole saw that I got. I really would like for it to be as simple and smooth as possible up until you get to the jagged bits. Now the saw itself that's on the end of the tool, fantastic, sharp, effective, just like QWERTY's was there in that match where I talked nothing about what he was doing. And here you go, we'll end you off with some Terraria soundtrack, and I spent a lot of time working that pole saw today, and I absolutely fell in love with some of its features to the point that I could forgive some of the cheapness and a lot of the jank that's going on with its design, and that's exactly how I feel about War Thunder, by the way. Anyway, hope you enjoyed this one, and I'll catch you in the next video. Bye-bye.